In May 1982, Duran Duran released the album that would define both their career and, for many, the sound and style of the decade itself. Few could have predicted what would happen next. What began as a second album by 5 young musicians from Birmingham would eventually become one of the defining records of the 1980s. So how did they create Rio? Following the success of their debut album in 1981, Duran Duran found themselves moving at an extraordinary pace. Touring, television appearances, and a growing international profile left little time to stop, so ideas were captured whenever they appeared. Songs grew between concerts, rehearsals, and television appearances, gradually taking shape long before the band entered the studio. By the end of the year, Rio, My Own Way, and Save a Prayer were already beginning to emerge. John Taylor had even given the project its title. Although he had never visited Brazil, Rio represented something larger than a real place. In his imagination, it became a symbol of colour, excitement, and endless summer, perfectly reflecting the mood the band wanted the album to capture. As Nick Rhodes later recalled, the greatest challenge wasn't coping with the band's growing popularity, but making sure the new material lived up to their debut. Confident in the songs they had written, Duran Duran reunited with producer Colin Thurston and returned to George Martin's Air Studios in London in January 1982. The songs were already there. What remained was turning them into something greater than the sum of their parts. Recording at Air Studios proved remarkably straightforward. According to John Taylor, every song except The Chauffeur had already been fully arranged before the sessions began, allowing the band to concentrate on performance, sound, and atmosphere, rather than rewriting material in the studio. Colin Thurston instinctively understood the band's strengths. His greatest contribution wasn't adding ideas, but recognizing which ideas were already strong enough to stand on their own. Rather than filling every available space, he refined the arrangements until every instrument had a clear purpose. Roger Taylor would later describe Rio as a lovely, simple record to make, remembering sessions that captured the band at the height of their creativity instead of burying the music beneath endless overdubs. While the tape machines rolled during the day, Nick Rhodes often remained behind in the evenings, watching Thurston work, asking questions, and learning how records were really made. Air Studios became his education in production. In the neighbouring studio, Paul and Linda McCartney were recording Tug of War, and Rhodes later recalled how surreal it felt when they would occasionally stop by simply to wish the young band good luck. At one point, John Taylor even found himself playing one of the finished Rio mixes to Paul McCartney, an extraordinary moment for a band whose career had only just begun. What emerged from those sessions was a sound unlike almost anything else on the charts in 1982. At the heart of Rio was movement. On most albums, the bass supports the song. On Rio, it often leads it. John Taylor's melodic bass lines weave effortlessly around Nick Rhodes' shimmering keyboards, creating a conversation between rhythm and melody that became one of the album's defining characteristics. Andy Taylor's guitar added brightness, texture, and attack without ever disturbing that balance, while Roger Taylor's precise drumming gave the arrangements both momentum and restraint. Above it all, Simon Le Bon approached lyrics almost like paintings rather than stories, leaving space for the listener's imagination and adding another layer of mystery to music already rich in atmosphere. Listen carefully to the opening of the title track, and you'll hear why Rio still sounds so distinctive. The haunting introduction wasn't created by a synthesizer at all. Nick Rhodes threw metal rods onto the strings of a grand piano before reversing the tape, inspired by the experimental music he admired. Beneath the famous bass line lie synthesized seagulls, distant carnival sounds, and countless subtle textures that most listeners never consciously notice. Remove those details and the songs would still work, but together they create the vivid atmosphere that makes Rio feel like its own world. That same confidence can be heard in what the band chose not to do. Instead of filling every moment with another instrument or another effect, they often embrace space. Save a Prayer is perhaps the finest example, allowing atmosphere to become just as important as melody. Even Simon Le Bon's vocals benefited from Thurston's understated philosophy, with much of the spaciousness coming naturally from Air Studios itself, rather than relying solely on electronic effects. Much has been written about Duran Duran's image, fashion, and videos, but none of those things would have endured without the musicianship underneath. Rio wasn't simply beautifully presented, it was beautifully played. When Rio was released in Britain in May 1982, it quickly became Duran Duran's biggest success to date, reaching number 2 on the album chart. Across the Atlantic, however, the response was far more subdued. Instead of abandoning the album after its slow start, Capitol Records invested even more heavily in it. Producer David Kirschenbaum was asked to remix several tracks, not because the songs needed changing, but because American audiences were hearing them differently. His new mixes gave Rio more width, more punch, and more clarity, while preserving the character of the original recordings. Nick Rhodes later admitted that once he heard them, he immediately understood why they worked. Kirschenbaum wasn't reinventing Rio, he was translating it for a different audience. The remixes alone weren't enough. Duran Duran spent months touring across North America, while Capitol continued promoting the album. Then MTV placed the videos for Hungry Like the Wolf and Rio into heavy rotation. The videos didn't simply promote the songs, they became part of the album's identity, introducing millions of viewers to a band that looked and sounded unlike anything else on television. Together, the remixes, the touring, and the videos transformed Rio into a major American success, helping launch the second British invasion and turning Duran Duran into one of the biggest bands in the world. Every great band spends its early years searching for its own identity. Some find it quickly, others never do. By the spring of 1982, Duran Duran had found theirs. The songs, the performances, the production, the artwork and the videos all pointed in the same direction. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt accidental. More than 4 decades later, that's still what makes Rio special.